Hello everyone, welcome to the FantasyLabrats. In this stream, we'll be talking about the Thursday. Oh no, not Thursday night. We'll be talking about the later games.
You had one job and you
I
messed
had
it
one
up.
job and I messed it up. So we'll be talking about the later games in terms of the Sunday 4 p.m. games and later till Monday. Um, and before we get started, I thought we just briefly just talk about the game that's about to start in the next hour, the Thursday night game. Any quick updates you guys want to talk about real quick?
The spread has not changed. It is still New Orleans plus 3.5 in most places. Um, the home dog always has my heart, so I'm still liking New Orleans. And one important note is that it seems as though Julio, who was limping all over the field in the last game, is actually going to be just fine for this game, or at least that's what they're telling us. So we were pretty, staunchly telling people not to play him for the Thursday lineups, but I think he's a fine play even in cash games. He's probably going to be okay if we are to believe what they're saying.
Who knows, man? He might be a decoy. We're worried about that. Or at
Yeah,
least some people are.
we're worried about the decoy, but they did confirm that he will not be on a snap count. They're not going to limit him in any way, but that doesn't prevent him from being used as a decoy just running around the field. So that is always going to be sort of the risk you're taking. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Nope. All right, so we're going to get started. So the first game we'll talk about is Carolina at Seattle. Carolina is 4-0. They're coming off their bye week. They're against Seattle, who are 2-3. They came off a pretty rough loss to Cincinnati last week. And the spread is now at -7 Seattle.
Right. So this game opened up at covers.com and has since moved to -7 Seattle. Most likely that's because the news came out that Marshawn Lynch is most likely going to play, giving them a boost in the run game. So you would think. We don't know if that's true. Rawls looked pretty good last week, and in the few games that we did see Marshawn Lynch, it wasn't particularly very good. That being said, Lynch could be a good tournament play. I'm not on him in cash games until he shows me that he's capable of doing something, but he is always a threat for 2 touchdowns in any game, particularly at home. But yeah, just strictly a tournament play, and he's probably quite low owned just because he hasn't looked good all year. For the Carolina side of the ball, I'm not really looking at anybody. I actually think that this is the collapse of the 4-0 Carolina Panthers game because it's like building up, right? Like since Seattle just had a crushing loss at home in like the final minute of a game versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now they're going back home and they're versus a Carolina team who's only beat Jacksonville, Houston, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay, which is like a pretty weak lineup. So even though they're coming off of a bye, I think that Seattle's going to have a fine time sort of trampling over them. So I don't really want anything to do with Carolina. And if I am touching Carolina, it's just Greg Olsen. Seattle's known to be weak against the tight end, as we saw Eifert light them up last week. So Greg Olsen's probably a play, but everybody else I'm just staying away from.
Low over under and high spread, right?
Right. Yep. And that means that you do not. Carolina is a road dog of 7 points or more, so that means you particularly stay away from their run game. And Jonathan Stewart is not good to begin with. So, if you were thinking for some reason it got into your head that you were going to play Jonathan Stewart, get it out of there now.
Yeah, to just sort of add on to that, I have a note here where Carolina is sixth against the rushing, and Seattle is 7th against rushing. So to me, that's sort of an indicator that I fade both running backs on both teams for this game.
Yeah, it's similar to the Washington
Yeah, the
versus
Jets.
Jets game,
Yep.
where the running games are good, but the defenses are just as good, so you don't play the running backs.
Yeah, and then also to add on to that, you mentioned some of the tight ends. I have here where we talked about Seattle being one of the easier defenses against tight ends. This is a good spot for Greg Olsen. I think he has a chance to have a really good game here. In terms of the Seahawks against the tight ends, they're ranked 28th, and they're giving up 18 points to Jared Cook, 10 points to Richard Rodgers. They did pretty well against Martellus Bennett, and Ebron, but the last game against Eifert, they gave up 21 points. So here it's showing that there could be a good chance that this is a good showing for Greg Olsen, especially being the #1 target in Carolina. This is a good spot for him. On the other side, I think Jimmy Graham is also a potential play as well. Uh, he's getting that squeaky wheel treatment. There are reports coming out saying that the coaching staff want to get him more involved. Want to, I mean, they just had a loss, right? So they're sort of trying to pin some blame, trying to say that there's adjustments they can make to the offense to try to win the games. So Jimmy Graham could get more involved here and get a lot of play. So I think both these tight ends in both teams is a good option. Going for daily fantasy, for tourney, and even for cash, I believe.
Jimmy Graham scares me a little bit there, just because Luke Kuechly is practicing this week, and he is back in the lineup. So the defense gets a little bit stronger. He's a linebacker, so he's going to be on Jimmy Graham. So it makes Jimmy Graham a little bit weaker of a play. But Jimmy Graham is still good.
Yep.
And if he is complaining, we saw that once before that got him a touchdown and about 80 yards, I believe. So yeah. I'm never going to say don't play Jimmy Graham, but it's not a particularly good matchup for him.
In terms of pricing, that is a pretty big difference. Greg Olsen is worth 6,300, and they're worth the same. They're both worth 6,300. So they're your second and third highest cost tight end. So that's an option that if you're looking at them, they're potential. Do you have anything to add to that, Square? Or?
Yeah, if that's the case, I think I'd rather take a chance on Greg Olsen. I think they have similar ceilings, but right now, yeah, I mean, and you're kind of getting a toss-up. I mean, Seattle's a team where they like to spread the ball around. You have Curse, Baldwin, even Chris Matthews,
Lockett.
And Lockett, right? So I would rather just take Olsen in that case if their cost the same.
Yeah, the only thing that I would throw in is that if you are making a GPP lineup and you make several of them, I would throw in one lineup that would have a naked Russell Wilson. That being, he has none of his receivers. You just have Russell Wilson as your quarterback. You're not stacking him. And that is because it does feel like a spot where Seattle just comes out and completely crushes the opponent, given that the last game was so brutal and they're at home. And it seems like it could be the perfect storm. So I'm okay with a naked Russell Wilson.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and talk about the San Diego at Green Bay game. San Diego are 2-3. They're going up against Green Bay at home, who are standing at 5-0. One of the things that sort of stood out to me in this game is that it's one of the higher scoring totals and one of the higher spreads. The total is at over under 50.5, and the spread is -10 Green Bay at home. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, and I feel like Green Bay over the last 2 weeks has looked not all that impressive. They had a game for the 49ers where they were only able to put up 17 points, and then they played the Rams and looked just as stagnant. It was not the Green Bay we're used to seeing. It's not really the Aaron Rodgers we're used to seeing, and particularly not the Eddie Lacy we're used to seeing. So I feel like what I'm about to say is probably not the popular opinion, especially considering the over-under is so high. But I'm not too much on this game. 50 points are generally being scored in a game. You want players in that game, but this is I'm getting weird feelings. It feels like this is going to go under to me. So I'm staying away from Eddie Lacy. I think he's going to be a heavy public play this week. I feel like the whole world is wanting Lacy to be better, and this is one of the matchups where you would expect him to do better. Like, he has been in bad matchups every single week. And last week some people thought it was the week. It wasn't. And then this week people are thinking it's weak, and I'm just not buying it. He doesn't look fast. He doesn't cut. I'm not in on Eddie Lacy. I said this last week. I'm not buying the whole Cobb thing. He's been under 40. I believe he's under 50 yards in 3 of the 5 games, and he has a shoulder issue that he came out and said today that it could flare up the rest of the season. Like, he doesn't know. So I'm not taking a risk on a guy like Cobb who could get injured and have no value. Like last week, the only player that I'm sticking with for the Packers is James Jones, because he just keeps proving that he's a touchdown threat. Even with 2 receptions, he got a 65-yard touchdown, and he's still cheap on FanDuel. So I think I'm okay with James Jones, but the rest of the Packers I'm probably not going near. And for San Diego, I feel the same way. That offensive line is bad, and it's only getting worse. It seems like the guys are just limping off the field every single game. So, they're 10.5-point dogs on the road. So I'm already staying away from the running back situation. Mix that with the fact that the offensive line is crap. I'm not wanting the running back situation. I feel like Phillip Rivers is going to have pressure on him the whole game because the linebackers on the Green Bay Packers are so good. So I'm not really part of the passing game. I'm not part of the running game. I'm not taking any of these San Diego Chargers.
Interesting. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to give a couple more interceptions at home? He broke that streak.
No, not against San Diego. I know it was like not like I guess the last it was against the Rams, right?
Yeah, he gave up 2.
He gave up 2 against the Rams, and the Rams are respectable as a defense. They were getting pressure on him in that game. It's probably not going to happen here, and I can't see him, having a mistake like that and then not correcting it. So I doubt he's going to throw any picks in this one.
Yeah, in terms of these two games, one thing that I sort of noticed was the rushing defense on both teams are both pretty bad. San Diego is ranked 29th against the run, and Green Bay is ranked 28th against the run. To me, this is a situation where I like to play both running backs on both teams. I know that they're 10-point favorites, and that Green Bay most likely will probably be leading most of this game. But I do like the fact that in terms of San Diego, Melvin Gordon, he's been getting the bulk of the carries. He's getting better and better as the season progresses. And if you've seen last week, he's starting to get more and more involved in the passing game. It's not like he's eating into Danny Woodhead's carries or catches or targets. He himself is earning those targets, and if you look at his targets from the last couple of weeks, Melvin Gordon was getting 3 targets. Like, this is in terms of just through the air. He's getting 3 targets, 1 target, 1 target, 2 targets. And then the last game, he got 9 targets and caught 7 of them. In terms of rushing, he's averaging 14 attempts per game. So it's good to expect at least 14 attempts from that guy, plus maybe at least 5 catches or so. And I think that makes him a good play, especially in a half-point PPR in the FanDuel format. And against the bad Green Bay rushing defense, I think that's a decent play. On the other side, I know you don't like Eddie Lacy as much, but here I think I actually like Eddie Lacy. Besides the last game where he did really terrible against the Rams, where he only rushed 13 times for 27 yards, the games before that, he was averaging about 4 yards per carry. And if it's against San Diego's bad rushing defense, I'm okay playing Eddie Lacy here, and I'm one of those believers. I will be sitting there on Sunday, crossing my fingers, hoping that he blows up.
All right. Well, when John Kuhn steals your touchdowns, you can rage face with me.
I know, but I'm hoping that if we assume they cover by 10, hopefully it's at least one Eddie Lacy that contributes to that 10-point difference. So.
Yeah, I just have one counter argument for you, and it's about Melvin Gordon. Yes, he has been involved in the passing game, and this is particularly true of the last game where they were leading the entirety of the game until the very last second. When the game came down to a point where they were behind, that final drive that San Diego had, Danny Woodhead was in. Okay, so I feel like they give Melvin Gordon the passing downs when they're ahead and comfortably. But in this game, Green Bay is most likely going to be ahead, which means that I expect more Woodhead in the passing game than Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, that could happen. Do you have anything to add to that, Square?
I've always thought that Green Bay. So in this situation, if we're talking about the running backs, if Phillip Rivers is going to get pressured very quickly and he recognizes it quickly, he will dish off to a running back or whoever's open and do a dinky pass, basically. And in that platform, Melvin Gordon might get a couple of PPR value, just like you were saying. So it's kind of a risk. But Ryan could be completely right in that they put Danny Woodhead in for those kind of plays because they recognize this as well. So in terms of choosing a running back, I would stay away from both and go somewhere else where I know that they're going to get the play and get the targets.
Okay. You guys never really mentioned anything about the quarterbacks. I know, like, we were talking about Aaron Rodgers being good. Where do you guys see Phil Rivers falling into this? Is he a turning play? Is he is he going to be a cash play here? Too scary with a 10-point spread? You don't trust him?
Usually a 10-point spread like this actually is a good sign for the quarterback because it means they're going to be behind and they're forced to throw. We saw that last week with Colin Kaepernick and Jay Cutler. They were behind, they were big dogs in the game, and they were forced to throw, and their fantasy production showed that, it's a beneficial situation to have sometimes, unless you're like completely terrible, like Alex Smith or something. So I'm not scared of Phillip Rivers for that reason. I'm scared of Phillip Rivers because the O-line is bad, like I said, but they also are facing a team that is incredibly good at putting pressure on the quarterback. So
Yeah.
it's like a perfect storm, and I'm not entering into that situation. For Aaron Rodgers, I think he's a fine cash play, but he is quite highly priced, and I feel like there's safer options. Like I said, Andy Dalton last week or this week is 2,000 less than him, and I feel like is probably at this point playing in the last 4 games better than him for fantasy wise anyway.
Yeah, to add on to that, Green Bay has rushed fourth against the pass, and they're giving up only 5 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. So this is sort of inviting, maybe some picks if you do play Philip Rivers. So I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Just throwing that out there. Um,
Bet the under. Be with me and bet the under in a
At
game
the
that
end there.
doesn't seem like it should go under.
okay, so we're going to talk about Baltimore versus San Francisco. Baltimore are 1-4. They were able to squeeze out that awesome victory versus the Browns, right? This is their first win. Was it the Browns?
No, it wasn't the first one. They beat Pittsburgh the week before. They
Oh,
squazzed
that's
that
right.
one
That's
out
right.
too.
I forget. So they lost to the Browns.
No, they beat the Browns.
They
Didn't
beat the Browns.
No, they're 1-4.
Oh, whoa, whoa,
They
whoa,
lost to
whoa.
one of them, guys.
they? They must have lost to the Browns then.
Yeah, they lost to the Browns. All right, so after an awesome victory against the Browns, they are now 1-4. No, they lost to the Browns. After
Oh my God.
let's just forget it. All right, they lost to the Browns. They got surprised and lost to the Browns. They're 1-4. They're up against the
Okay.
San Francisco 49ers. They're also 1-4. It's a battle of the 1-4s. San Francisco are plus 2.5 at home.
hmm So for this game, yeah, it's interesting that. So talking about Baltimore last week, Flacco had 2 rushing touchdowns, and I
Best
think
running back.
Forsett. Sorry,
He's the best running back on their team.
he has the best. He was number 1 on that best the stat chart in the rushing category. Yes, Forsett had a good game as well. He had a touchdown still. It was a receiving touchdown, and he ran it in. So Flacco kind of surprised us with that. But overall, Ravens as a team does not look good. They lost to the Browns. Even if they have a okay offensive game, they surprisingly lost to the Browns. And San Francisco as well is a struggling team, but last week they showed a little bit of life, where Kaepernick did not throw any picks, and he threw 2 touchdown passes. So for Baltimore right now, without a strong favorite wide receiver like Steve Smith, they are just spreading the ball around and targets everywhere. I thought that Kamara Aiken might get a lot more of the Steve Smith treatment, but he didn't. The ball went everywhere. So I think I would stay away from the Ravens. However, on San Francisco, Antoine Bolden had the majority of the targets in terms of wide receivers. And against a defense like Baltimore right now, I'd even say Kaepernick and Bolden's stack might be an interesting thought. Last game, Bolden had 8 receptions with about 120 yards, but he didn't have any touchdowns. If he did have a touchdown, it'd be a very respectable line. So I might think about that, especially because I think right now they're both well priced. In terms of the running backs, Forsett is playing. He was questionable this week, not practicing, but he is suiting up. So as far as we know and so he would be a good play because offensively Baltimore doesn't have anything solid except for him. And Hyde is turning it back up again. He's consistently getting a lot of carries, like 15, 17, 18, 21 last game. And so I think he is a solid play as well. He's getting volume, so I think it's solid. I think he is costing around 7,300 right now, so it's a little higher up. There might be some other running backs around that area that you might like, but I think he will put up solid numbers against this Baltimore Ravens defense. So I think those are the notables in this particular game.
So there's one thing I want to add to that. I have this as a revenge script game.
Hmm.
Torrey Smith and Anquan Bolden are both ex-receivers on the Baltimore Ravens.
Mm.
And Torrey Smith is the most recent acquisition from the Ravens, right? So he was
Right.
playing there last year. Now he's playing for the Niners. So you want to play? I like to play Torrey Smith in that scenario. And I thought, oh, it's been a while since Bolden has been traded to the Niners. But actually, he's never faced against Baltimore since the Super Bowl where that was their last meeting, and he was with the Ravens at that time. So since then, they have not met each other since that point. So in that regards, this is still a revenge game for Anquan Bolden. I like the idea of doing a super stack of doing Colin and both receivers.
Can we instead call this the suicidal stack?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
When do you ever take 2 receivers on a team? Like,
Much less this team.
yeah, especially with the
against the
over-under.
Baltimore Ravens, who are giving they're like the 25th ranked passing defense, giving up 9 touchdowns.
It's just that it's not a very well correlated play. Like let's just take for example the Browns, who scored 33 points against them. Who do you stack? You take McCown, you take Barnage, and then if you put a third guy in there, there's no like strong third guy. It got spread around at that point, so
Yeah,
it's unlikely that all of them get.
Is
I
this just one of those revenge logics?
I'm just
Like,
going off the
you wanna-
revenge script. I think it'd be an interesting. I might even use that super stack and then play around with a roster with that and hope for the best. But that's something that I'm looking into, and if you guys are interested, that's something that you guys can try. I do think there is a revenge script that could come into play, and
So, I feel like we have to put a disclaimer on this. Like, if you are of the gambling type, you can think about this play.
If you're doing this, you're the gambling type.
Right.
yeah, I think it's a good one.
All right.
Um,
Noted.
so how about the running backs on the Ravens? What's the situation on that?
Forset's playing. He gets volume. I think they're very similar. Forset and Hyde right now. They're in similar situations. They both get volume plays. Forset's been getting a lot of passes as well. So has Hyde in some situations. So I think they're very similar and both very good plays in this game.
So the situation is that Taliaferro, the backup who had been stealing carries in the games he actually played, was put on season-ending IR. So he's irrelevant now, which you would think would make Forsett like this ideal play. But Buck Allen, a rookie they drafted, is actually pretty good, and he did good last week at 8 carries for 55 yards. So in the case that Forsett, for some reason, does not play, even though they're saying that he does play, Buck Allen is a very cheap option. And I am fearful with the way that the coach, it's the same coach for the last few years. They tend to like this splitting carries thing. I mean, that's why Taliaferro was a threat. So Forsett, I feel like this week is going to be an incredibly public play given the way he performed last week. And Buck Allen looked so good that I think there's a likelihood that they actually eventually in this season end up with a 50-50 split. So I'm staying away from Forsett. Another player that we didn't really talk about much is Steve Smith Sr. He's practicing this week. He's most likely playing. And I'm playing him. I'll be willing to play him against the San Francisco defense that's 30th against the pass.
Did not know that.
Can I also
The
launch
last
a
update
tangent?
was
want to launch
questionable for this game.
Steve
That
Smith
was
Sr. It says
yeah.
that he practiced today in full.
Limited. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Reading
So
today's update.
the only thing that I have to say is that I don't like this revenge game logic that we keep using. It worked for Andre Johnson, who is not part of the game plan normally. He was phased out, and then he became part of the plan specifically for this revenge game thing, right? Bolden and Torrey Smith are part of the game plan every single week, and they're very undependable, even though they're the primary targets. So they're still the primary targets. They're not going to go to them more. They were already going to them as much as they could, and it wasn't working. So I'm not buying into this whole revenge game. I agree that they are going to be motivated to score touchdowns, but no more than they are in other games because they're getting the same. They should be getting the same amount of volume. And Golden Tate revenge game versus Seattle did nothing. Hankerson revenge game against the Redskins did nothing. So we actually have a better sample size for the revenge game not doing anything than doing something.
We'll see.
Yet alone a super stack.
Yeah, let alone a super stack.
We'll see.
You'll see. No one else will.
All right. So we'll talk about the next game: New England at Indianapolis. New England is 4-0 at home. Indianapolis is 3-2. Indianapolis is plus 7.5 at home.
This is a drama game. This is the first time they're meeting since the whole Deflategate saga in the playoffs last year. So there's a lot of hype around this game, and the over/under is super high. That might be a public thing. However, the last 7 games that Indy has played against, or no, that New England has played against the Colts, New England has averaged 41.83 points against them. And I also tracked, because New England is one of my favorite teams, how Tom Brady has been performing against the Colts over his whole career. And he scored around 26 points average on fantasy and averaged 2.8 touchdowns a game against the Colts. I also tracked Edelman. Edelman does very well against the Colts. Blunt, the last game they played, had 3 touchdowns. So everything kind of statistically says, as a New England, so disclaimer, I'm a New England fan, that New England will win against the Colts, no matter what the spread is. I think the spread, what's the spread right now? Did you say it?
Plus 7.5.
Plus 7.5, minus, yeah, okay. So New England it's minus 10.
Yeah, it's at 10. It opened at 7 and
now.
moved at 10.
Yep, because it's 93, so 93% of the
This is like every New England game.
right are going towards New England. So I didn't see the spread. I thought the spread was going to be minus 7-ish. So minus 10 is questionable, but I think it's going to be right around there, if any. If it's not a blowout, it's going to be right around 10. So I think it's a good bet. So in terms of who to play on New England, there are a lot of good ones. Actually, Indianapolis, I looked at the stat, has allowed the least number of fantasy points to tight ends in the league this year. Gronk is a great tight end. He's slightly been underperforming in terms of fantasy points, but he still gets the looks. So in terms of daily fantasy, I would not look to play him just because he limits the other quality players that I could play because of his salary. So I probably will look around. So I would not play with Gronk. Blunt or Lewis, I think Lewis is looking solid still. He had that ninja move like touchdown, which looked pretty sweet. But I think Blunt will also have a good game because I think they will get to the red zone, and when they get at the 1 or 3 or 5 yard line, they sometimes look to go to Blunt, who is more of a bigger, straight down the middle kind of rushing back. So I think it's a split, so you can take a chance. But Blunt is cheaper at this moment, so I would take a chance on him. Brady would be a good play, but I think he's pretty expensive right now, and he'll get right around 30 points if anything. So I'd probably look elsewhere as well, and just because of the salary cap. But he'll probably get a good amount of points, so you could play him as well. All right, so on the Colts side, the coach is being mysterious about who the starting quarterback will be. It looks like Andrew Luck is getting most of the snaps in practice, but they're still not announcing it. Hasselbeck's also getting touches as well. So I think it's more of a let's confuse the Pats and make them prepare for both quarterbacks kind of play, but Luck will play. And I think he might be okay, but historically against New England, Luck does not play well. So I'd probably stay away from him as well. T.Y. Hilton is injured and questionable. T.Y. Hilton is one of the best, their best wide receiver, but is questionable. So I'd look to pick up Moncrief or even Moncrief if Hilton's out, because he will get PPR value. Nate Solder, so on New England, back to New England, because that's all I'm talking about. Nate Solder, who is Brady's blindside bodyguard, is out for the season with an injury. He did not look good last game. Brady got sacked a bunch by the Cowboys. And his backup is questionable. I don't know how he plays, but if Brady does not get the coverage he needs, he might not perform as well as you think. But I don't know. Still New England against the Colts. I like New England. I like most all the New England players, the typical ones. There's nothing surprising.
Wait, so let me backtrack a little bit. So would you play Tom Brady or would you not play Tom Brady?
I'd say play Tom Brady if you can't figure it out. Like if you don't want to take a chance on anybody else and you want solid 20 points, take Tom Brady and take the salary. But if you're looking to get, if you're looking for places to cut in salary, like limit your salary down so you can pick up some other player that you really want, then you can venture off. I think there are a lot of quarterbacks who can score around 20 points. So, I mean, it's up to you. Like I might take Brady in certain leagues and might not take Brady in a lot of leagues, but I will say that he has done very well against this Colts team in his whole career. At least averaging 2.8 touchdowns a game against the Colts. It's pretty solid.
So like for me, it's like this game sort of scares me though. I know the Pats have been like ramming every team into the ground, but this is one of the highest over/unders. The Colts are given a lot of points, and they're even more now. They're plus 10, right? Plus 10 to 10.5. The media is really pegging this as a revenge game, and they're trying to build up the drama, saying that Tom Brady, because of Deflategate and all that stuff, is gonna try to ram this, like, just really bring this team down as much as he can. Does that make you guys encourage you guys to play more players from the Pats or play less players from the Pats?
So I'm of the mindset that they're ramming it down everybody's throat, and that the Colts are just you're not going to ram it even more down somebody's throat. They're already doing it. Just history between the Colts. I know you did the history between the Pats and the Colts, particularly in the last 4 games. The Patriots have been ramming it down the Colts' throat, but only with the run.
Mm-hmm.
I think Blunt has something like 7 touchdowns versus the Colts in the last 3 games. Like, he's just getting fed the ball a lot. And if we are saying that Nate Solder is out and the blind side of Tom Brady is constantly getting hit, that's even more reason not to pass the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if the game plan versus the Colts already is normally to run the ball, and we have a weaker offensive line for pass protection purposes, I say we run the ball even more. So I like both the running backs. Particularly, I feel like this is a Blunt game, but the other guy named Dion Lewis, they did just give him his contract. So I think both of them are totally fine. I'm not touching Edelman,
Mm-hmm.
again, because I feel like they're just going to run the ball a whole lot. And Vontae Davis is on Edelman and has typically fared pretty well against Edelman. I never feel like it's a safe bet to say that you don't want any Gronk exposure. And if you're running the ball a lot, they're going to sort of bring all of the defense closer to stop the run, and then Gronk can sort of slip past to the back, and you get one bomber to Gronk, and then game over. If you don't have Gronk, you're all of a sudden at the back of your league. So I'm playing the running backs, and in probably 50% of the leagues like I do every week, I'm throwing in some Gronk.
Yep.
Like it.
So we all love the Pats again, right? Is that the general consensus? We all love the Pats.
Yeah,
Like 93% of. Yep.
right. We're part of the public, and I think it's a safe bet. Every week they've been doing really well. I do think that the Colts have some merit because the Patriots are a team that when they blow out a team, they do sort of loosen up their defense. Like, we don't want to get hurt, but we're not going to get beat. So they'll allow, we saw it with Jacksonville, or was it Jacksonville? It was some team they were blowing out, and then the other team sort of started to come back a little bit. It was the Bills. The Bills just started scoring in garbage time, and I feel like there's perfectly good. I think a play with Moncrief, whose value has decreased due to the last game where he got nothing, is actually pretty good because there's going to be garbage time, and I think he's going to benefit from the garbage time. I like Moncrief, and I like T.Y. Hilton.
You guys don't like Andre Johnson, who got 2 touchdowns last game?
No.
No.
Yeah, I think you stay away from Andre Johnson in this game. So on to the last game. This is the New York Giants at Philadelphia. The Giants are 3-2 against Philadelphia, who are 2-3. Philadelphia is -4.5. What do you guys think?
I think the really weird thing about this is that Philadelphia is -4.
Mm-hmm.
Their record is worse, and the Giants are a couple stupid plays at the end of games from 5-0. So I feel like for some reason the Giants are like getting this hate from Vegas, and maybe, well, according to the numbers, not actually hate from the public. The public's on the Giants in this game, so the public sees it. I guess it's just Vegas that sees it, which means that the public's probably wrong about something. Maybe the number represents that Odell is probably going to be out, and somehow Vegas knows that already. I think it's incredibly hard to make any prediction about this game, not knowing the status of the Giants receivers, both Odell Beckham and Ruben Randle, who are both probably 50-50 to play at this point. And it being a Monday game makes it really hard to set them in your lineup. And on FanDuel, you can't switch at the last minute like you can on DraftKings. So it's not safe to play Odell. It's not safe to play Randle. And it's not safe to play the third guy who would be the one benefiting, Dwayne Harris, if those two didn't play.
Yeah.
So and the game script is completely different as well if those guys sit out. You know, if you have them in the game, then all of a sudden the Philly receivers become important. If they're not in the game, then all of a sudden the Eagles running game becomes important and the Giants running game becomes important. So without the information, I don't know what I'm going to do here.
Well, you have to do something, right? So do you just fade it, or do you?
I think because it's on Monday.
Darts.
Okay, so if we get to Sunday and we know that Odell is playing, then you can play Eli, you can play Odell, and you don't
again.
play.
You can play a stack again.
Yeah, you stack them. And you don't play Ruben Randle and Dwayne Harris, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have more value in playing the receivers on the Eagles, because they're going to be in catch-up mode, or they're at least going to be trying to be in contention, rather than trying to run out the clock against a stagnant Giants.
A really interesting play is to play Vereen. As soon as the receivers were injured or like hobbled and not part of the, they weren't on the field, Vereen got a ton of play and started like just gashing them through the air.
Yeah, if Odell's out, by all means, Vereen and PPR at flex, amazing play, cost cheap. Yeah. Lots of play.
I think even if Odell plays and Randall doesn't play, Vereen could still be a good flex play as well too. So that's someone to look at. Do you guys like anyone from Philly?
No.
No.
I don't, just because last game we called Aguilar, but Aguilar got injured right away, and the touchdown went to Huff. They were throwing touchdowns at Cooper. They were getting intercepted, but they were throwing them at him. Ryan Matthews is relevant. Darren Sproles is relevant. DeMarco Murray is relevant. Jordan Matthews is relevant. Ertz is relevant. Selleck has got a touchdown in each of the last two games. Nobody's playing Selleck. There's just too many people.
Both Selleck's got a touchdown. The other
yeah.
Selleck as well.
Yeah, so I'm just... There's too much variability in who's going to be targeted in the end zone. With the game script is unknown. It's a stay away. That being said, I do think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it goes over.
Yeah.
Did you take Bradford in this case?
I don't ever take Bradford. Sorry, I know you love Bradford.
This game screams Bradford for me.
Yeah, I understand why. The Giants' pass defense is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of the passing defenses, New York Giants are ranked last in passing defense, and the Philly are ranked 26th against the passing defense. So it does sort of shape up to be a shootout type game for Monday night, which everyone sort of hopes for. And it's the over-under set at 50, which is also promoting a shootout type of game. So Square, you sound like you wanted to play Bradford. Are you playing him, or like in a lot of leagues? Are you wanting to do a stack with him with some receiver? Who do you have in mind?
So I'm not stacking him with the receiver just because Oven said it. There are just a lot of things going on. Actually, Josh Huff got a lot of play and looked actually pretty good. I don't know if it's because he was kind of under the defense's radar, just because he's kind of a new play. They're focusing on Jordan Matthews and even Aguilar at that point, and Cooper. But he looked pretty good on the field. Jordan Matthews has been underperforming as soon as Riley Cooper started getting more play, and Bradford seems to be favoring Cooper a little more and more. I don't know if it's because Jordan Matthews has been getting a lot of defensive attention as well. So for all these reasons, I'm staying away from the wide receivers on this team, but I am gonna play Bradford most likely.
Can I just bring up a conversation we had last week, which was that Jordan Matthews we all were on the bandwagon. Like, this dude, if he's catching the touchdowns that they're calling back, he's in the top 15 of receivers. And Brandon Cooks is a nobody. We don't like that guy. He's a scrub. Now this week, it's completely changed. I want Cooks. I want nothing to do with Jordan Matthews, and it's just one game.
Is it because of the trash touchdown that Cooks got?
He got a lot of it's no Colson, and he got a lot of targets in that game. And Jordan Matthews is just sort of one cog in a giant machine that is this Philly offense.
Right. Yeah.
So you guys are off of Jordan Matthews this week.
Yep.
Wow, you're never off Jordan Matthews.
I know he's my homie, but this week I'm staying away. With that said, when I don't play a player, so I play Doug Martin pretty much every week until that 1 week where he had 30, almost 40 points. So this might be the week Jordan Matthews goes off. I'm not playing him, so you guys can feast on this opportunity maybe. But I have stated the reasons why I am staying off of Jordan.
We made that joke, and we thought about playing Jordan Matthews sheerly because you were on him.
Yeah, you guys are little assholes. And it's okay. For everyone's benefit, you guys should.
Are you on
You heard
him
it here
Mitch,
first,
or no?
people.
You heard it here first.
Are you on him or no?
Jordan?
Jordan Matthews.
No.
No?
No. It's like too many mouths to feed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too many mouths to feed, but if you look at his targets, he's getting 13, 9, 8, 8, and 7, and he caught 10, 6, 6, 3, 5. He's still getting the same amount of looks. He's still getting the same amount of play. He's just not finding the end zone that everyone would like him to. So I don't know. I'm a little bit more in between. If I had to, because it's shaping up to be a shootout, I do like Matthews in this scenario.
Yep.
Especially, I mean, it can't be 0 to 33 or 30, whatever it is. So I think they have to score in some way, and I think Matthews is going to be it. I don't think it will be through the ground. The Giants have a good running defense. They're second ranked against yards allowed on the ground. So I do think that Philly will have to throw. I agree with you guys that there's a lot of mouths to feed, but I do think he should be the main beneficiary of the passing game.
High ceiling.
Yeah. So.
I think he has high ceiling.
Yep.
So I actually have a dart throw in this game and in the Patriots game.
Okay.
For tournaments, I'm thinking Ertz is going to get a touchdown. I'm feeling Ertz. And in the previous game with the Patriots, I like Keyshawn Martin to get a touchdown.
Interesting.
Keyshawn Martin.
Why Keyshawn Martin?
Just everybody's going to be looking. Vontae Davis is covering Edelman. And you have everybody's going to be watching Gronk, which leaves sort of the other guy, which is Keyshawn Martin.
Why not Amendola?
Amendola doesn't run deep routes. He just does these little hooks and stuff. And, if he gets a touchdown, it's like a little 4-yard dinky thing. I feel like this is the type of game that Brandon LaFell would get a touchdown. But he's out. So it's Keyshawn Martin filling the role. So I'm going to take me some Keyshawn Martin in some places. And he's the min price on FanDuel. So why not? Brady's throwing to him. He can't be that bad. And he got a decent amount of targets last week.
If he drops the pass, though, he's going to get that Tom Brady treatment.
Yeah, well.
If he drops one pass.
He's cheap for a reason.
He drops one pass.
So we have a question from one of our viewers. The question is, what are the top flex plays this week?
So I think we already said one of them, but I like Vereen particularly in a PPR format. Every catch he gets, even though it might be a little dinky catch, is a full point or a half point, depending on your site. So I kind of like Vereen. Bolden and Torrey Smith could be interesting flex plays. They're interesting sheerly because of the terrible defense they're playing in Baltimore. So they could get a deep touchdown. I know last week Bolden actually got a ton of attention, 7 catches for over 100 yards. So.
What about the Philly running backs? I know we didn't really touch base on them. Any of them? Like I know DeMarco Murray, you can't really consider him a flex, right?
Ryan Matthews.
Can you not consider him a flex?
Maybe you can. I mean, is he a play for you guys, DeMarco Murray? Yes.
No.
No.
He's still slow. He's still getting knocked down after the first contact.
Yeah.
The only reason that he's doing anything is because he's getting the volume. And I think it's only a matter of time before Ryan Matthews, despite the fact that DeMarco Murray has this huge contract, Ryan Matthews is the better running back. So maybe you could flex Ryan Matthews. They gave him a little bit more play than Sproles last week, and I think that's the way it's going to be for the rest of the season. Is you're going to have DeMarco Murray probably with 60%, Ryan Matthews with 30%, and then Sproles with about 10%.
Yeah, it's just scary going into the Giants' run defense. That's why I would be scared to play DeMarco Murray. But yeah, Matthews is a decent flex play. What about Sproles? Usually he's always considered the one of the best flexes, right? When he's on any team. Do you guys see him being flex worthy this week or no?
After last week, he had one catch, and that is his role. He's supposed to be catching the ball, and he had one catch for 10 yards. So unless he gets you a touchdown on the one catch he gets, or in a punt return or a kick return, then he doesn't return the value.
Away.
Yeah, I don't think you play Sproles.
I agree. You stay away from him.
There's so many other wide receivers, and Sproles plays a spot like every once in a while.
Another flex play, Denny Woodhead.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep, always.
I'm just going through the games that we talked about today.
Rawls. Do you guys like Rawls?
No.
I don't like Rawls. He is promised to have 8 to 10 carries.
Yeah.
But, it's just too uncertain. Marshawn Lynch could just take up all the carries. You never know. Like, you need
in terms of game flow, though, like he could be like Seattle might blow him out and just slow the pace down, and they might not put Lynch because he's just coming back from an injury, right? So Rawls could get some more plays, like snaps.
I'm not trying to play a guy who might get play given a particular game script. I want to play a guy in my flex who is useful if the game script goes wrong. And Rawls is not that kind of guy. If for some reason it's a close game, it could just be 0-0 all the way until the fourth quarter. Then Rawls is like useless. I am feeling Kamar Aiken. I actually kind of like Kamar Aiken this week, and I think most people will be off of him. And he's against San Francisco, who's allowing a ton of they're allowing around 300 yards a game passing. So I'm okay with Kamar Aiken.
Flacco Kamar stack.
So before we sign off, I just want to mention. I just want to ask. This is sort of like a maybe you guys need to pull it up real quick. What is a player valued under 5K that you would play?
All right, give me
just one player. I'll start off since you guys need to.
Is this for a tournament or is this for what is this for?
Can we play kickers?
For tourney is just for tourney. No kickers, no defenses. All right, we'll sort of all have a player under 5K and we'll put them head to head and we'll sort of just for the fun, right? Just that value player. Okay.
Okay.
My favorite, which I mentioned in the last broadcast, is Stephon Diggs from the Minnesota Vikings wide receiver. I think, as reasons I stated before, I think if either of the receivers for Minnesota are out, he becomes a really big play. His first game as a Viking, he had 6 catches for 87 yards on, I believe, 9 targets. And that is a lot of trust that he's getting from Teddy Bridgewater. And he's against Kansas City this week. So I really like him to have a good game, and hopefully he'll be that star receiver. I mean, we see Mike Wallace. We're not that impressed with him. We think he's okay, but hopefully Diggs gives them that, that big star power. I'm hoping that he's a big play this week.
So what's the price range we're looking at?
Under 5K. And Stephon Diggs is only worth 4,500.
Yeah, this is a little unfair because you hit us with this and you had prepared. So.
I know.
I was ready for this. I want to see if you guys were.
Well, how would we be ready for this?
I'm like scrolling through the names below 5,000.
I mean, Ernst, I guess.
Yeah, you sort of have to go with the tight end on our site.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick by Keyshawn Martin.
Keyshawn Martin, huh?
I'm going to stick by Keyshawn Martin just because there's not exactly that much value as I scroll through here.
I mean,
Kyle Rudolph could be good.
If you're gonna pick Keyshawn Martin, I'm gonna make the interesting pick and pick Amendola.
Oh, okay. What's his price?
4,800.
4,800.
All right. Now we got an in-game.
Exactly. So makes it more
right.
interesting.
So Square has Amendola for 4,800. Oven Mitts has Keyshawn Martin for 4,500, and I have Stephon Diggs for 4,500. We'll sort of compare those players next stream, and we'll see how that goes.
All right.
I think that's all we have for today. We covered all the late games. If you missed our analysis and predictions for the early games, it's in our last broadcast. You can check that out on YouTube and Twitch as well. Anything else you guys want to say?
Nope.
Nope.
Our Twitter and YouTube and email are all FantasyLabrats. So Twitter is @FantasyLabrats, YouTube is /FantasyLabrats, and Gmail is FantasyLabrats@gmail.com. So hit us up there, find us there, do whatever there.
Yep. And that's it. Thanks for joining us, guys. I'm Nani, heading out. Later, guys.
Later.